Hey,
Hey, Glenn.
hey, your mom didn't want me to talk to you.
Really?
Well, I called and I heard her yell, well, use the phone downstairs.
hmm
And then she stopped talking and it hung up.
Hmm.
Hey, Glenn.
That's interesting. My mom, I could picture her saying something like that, and maybe
Yeah.
she forgot. I don't know. When was this?
Well, hang on. I'll see if I still have it on here. All I got to do is look for Jerd. Jerd. November 6th.
November. Oh, so that was like a week ago, almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
6:26 p.m.
Let me see what day that landed on. That was home. Let me see.
You have November 4th, and it was in the afternoon, and I was trying to finish some work before it got too dark, and then I got stuck on the next day with snow and stuff.
Yeah.
I had to clean up. And so I got around one day later, November 6th, at Spring.
So, I heard the snow's pretty bad up there. That's for
Yeah.
my grandmother. My grandmother actually just came down yesterday from Canada.
Yeah.
You were saying
We got about a foot of snow yesterday, or the day before.
Yeah, that's too. I mean, it wasn't a foot, but it was pretty bad. I mean, it was accidents and everything. And
Yeah.
I had to drive in that stuff because that's what I do for a living. Not driving. So I can imagine you guys always get what we get, but worse.
Yeah.
So, Dana's on the line too.
Hi, Dana.
Hello there.
How's it going?
Surviving.
Surviving. That's about all we can do now until the creation decides it's time to move on. I've got the field up front pretty well the way I've been asked to do it. And now I'm waiting for enough money to buy a proper lawnmower. The one I got has already got bent blades. I knew it wouldn't last because 4 years hides a lot of things.
Yeah. It's the one that with the bent blade. That's the one you used to drive around the property.
Well, it's a new one that I got from a woman giving $2,000. Say, go buy a lawnmower. And I said, well, that'll buy a lawnmower, but not the one I need. But I couldn't get the money I needed, so I decided, well, even if it lasts just long enough to finish off this year, I can always have the mower part taken off and use it as a towing for the buggies that I attach behind it, Pick up branches and stuff like that after they're cut. So
Oh,
that's what
were
happened.
those coordinates?
It worked for a month, and then it was gone.
Wow, that's $2,000 going.
Yeah. Oh, the blades, right?
Yeah.
You just have to do the
The
blades.
blades, yeah, the blades are bent, and it touches the ground even when you lift it off to its highest level. So
Right.
I have to use wire to lift it up higher, as high as I could pull it. And now at least it doesn't touch the ground, and I got the wagon behind it. So.
Well, when you called me the other day, were you calling returning a phone call, or you wanted to see how I was doing?
I was returning your phone call of 2 days before. Yeah.
So, me and Dana have been talking about, like, activity that we've been seeing, over a period of time, because it seems like this stuff, like with everything else, it's not something that happens in a day, or it's always like over a long period of time. It's like a picture that's kind of drawn,
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I've been at it almost 77 years. Yeah. He's 77 in a little less than 2 months, I guess.
Oh, so can you even fit 77 candles on the birthday cake?
I doubt it. I'm just hoping that 77 is a lucky number, and we make a giant step, because that's the way it normally is. You work like hell, nothing happening. All of a sudden, it makes a jump. Then you go back to a higher level than you had been before, but not still where you want to get. So,
7-7. I think Dana was mentioning something like that. I think it was in that paper, that package, those packages that
the
the
bomb
Democrats, the Democrats were receiving.
Oh, pipe bomb thing, yeah.
The fake,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
You
the
heard
address
about
that
that,
they
right?
used was like 7-7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some guy was joking with me. He said they probably mailed it to themselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If Lake Simcoe, on the banks of Lake Simcoe in southwestern Ontario, above Toronto, slightly west of Toronto, but above it, is the headquarters for the Ontario Provincial Police. Why they set up there, I have no except that it was done in 1949. They moved out of Toronto and settled there. I'm trying to think of the name of the town. Doesn't come to mind right away. But
you're talking about not Montreal. I'm sorry. I'm thinking Bell Canada headquarters.
Bell Canada is Montreal.
Yeah.
But this is Ontario Provincial Police. Why they set up there in a small country town, I don't know. Now, notice if at the Sioux were to spill over, the first part of it would be in Canada, and the direction it would take is directly towards OPP headquarters. And their address on the road they're on is 777. So I suspect that 7 has something to do with cleanup.
Oh.
And what they don't want is for to be with information they need that happens when the Lou at the Sioux happens. So it would be the first place hit, which would mean all their computers and communication.
Hello?
Yeah.
777 Memorial Avenue, Oriole?
Yeah, that's it.
Aurelia?
Aurelia. That's
Aurelia.
it.
Aurelia.
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 Yeah.
So we saw, like...
if you look at a map, the water break up at, what's the name of that town? Geez, I'm frozen.
So cold, you can't even...
Yeah, right along between St. Marie River, St. Mary's River, and the bay down there above Lake Huron. I can see it all. I can't think of the names.
Let me look at a map.
Yeah.
Let me see. Map of Lake Huron, I say. Map of Lake Huron.
What's that bay right above Lake Huron? Above Michigan.
Okay, let me see here.
Not Gore Bay.
Not what?
Not Gore Bay, right? No?
Gore Bay?
Gore? I see a Gore.
I see
the big
Georgian Bay. I see Georgian Bay.
Georgian Bay, that's it.
Georgian.
The water would go into Georgian, and at the end of right Lake Simcoe.
Yeah, say that again because you kind of sound kind of choppy. I don't know if it's your signal.
Water would come out and go into Georgian Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the beginning, the pickup of barrier to Lake. And when it gets to the end of Georgian Bay, it goes on land, and that land can't be more than something like 100 miles across. Then you hit Lake Simcoe. And it goes down a river all the way to, seems I can't recall. Had to have a map in front of me.
That one you had downstairs is pretty useful.
Yeah, underwater now.
That's a sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
Things to come. Yeah, we saw. Dana noticed it again. Like it seemed like on the west coast of the U.S., it's like fire is the main type of element. You seen?
Yeah.
And on the east coast, it's like water. Right? Was that what you said, Dana? You said water.
Water on the east, fire on the west.
Yeah, the two. Because when you go to Parliament Hill, in front of the building, by the street, you see a symbol of fire and water they use there. And the two opposites.
Forget the name of the place that town in Northern California, Paradise.
It's called Paradise, you said?
Yeah.
Yep.
Paradise.
It's a place where a lot of people left from other parts of the U.S. to go and have peace and quiet.
Mm.
And there isn't anything left.
Hmm.
Now they're talking about 70 people are dead with
70.
over 1,000 missing.
Over 1,000 what?
Missing, yeah.
Over 1,000.
The other one down south, I've the name of that fire closer to Los Angeles. The wife of Arthur, the guy that was providing a place to stay for Jennifer, his ex-wife lives in the middle of that place where the fire happened, and Jennifer thinks she was responsible for Arthur's murder.
Because they wanted to collect like money or something from him dying, or I think.
Yeah, $1 million to $3 million, I forget. So, if that survived with the money, so.
Yeah, your connections like really like you keep coming in and out. I think you think I could maybe if we hang up with you.
You want to try calling me back?
Yeah. Because it's like.
Yeah, try it again. Just hang up and.
All right. Okay.
Is that any better?
Yeah, it sounds better. But you have to talk some more.
I don't know what caused it except the telephone company interfering, because I was holding the phone in my hand and I'm holding it directly in front of my face. So. But Bell Canada has been known to do that kind of stuff.
They like to play this game with you.
Yeah.
Dana, you I think you had to bring up a point. Something that I think Dana had to bring up.
Ask me and I'll tell you no lies.
You know what's fun? I would mention this to. I think I mentioned this to you already, but I remember when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister and that whole play of him being nasty.
Yeah.
And so the Democrats could come in, or the left, whatever. I forget what they.
Liberals.
Liberals, yeah. The liberals come in and go left, like kind of like they did in Europe, and it seems like that's what the U.S. is following, that same game plan or strategy, whatever.
Yeah,
There's
no doubt about it that there was a wave. However, the U.S. being different than any place else has a House representing the population, and their information is totally derived from media. Whereas the other side, the president and his group, are informed mostly by the Senate.
Yeah, the Senate.
Which is under the domination mostly of billionaires. So if you're going to have a war between the parties concerned, the dominating factor in all of this is the Senate. And the more people resign or retire from the Senate, the more the billionaires and Trump can nominate people who are of their beliefs. And therefore, the House and the media have lost, basically, any strength they really had. Even though they have more members, the decision always comes down to the Supreme Court. And if Trump can put in a number of 40-year-olds, they're going to be there for 30 years, 35 years, at least. And that means whatever the others try to pass, even if they elect the president, the Supreme Court has the last say.
So what's this game all about, though, with them? Like with the...
Well, we're going towards the end times. And the end of the world doesn't mean what most people were taught when they were young, that it meant everything is gone. The end of the world is only the end of the world as we know it. And as we know it means no more politicians, no more media, no more Senate, no more House, control by a single power. And that single power has to be under what is known to the public today, only the military on one side and the UN on the other side. And the military always wins because they got guns.
And they're going into outer space, so it seems like they're going to have longevity as far as
we are, I believe, getting ready for a takeover by the military.
Oh, shit.
And it has to happen within the time frame of the Big 8-0, which means the effort began in about the early 1970s, when the military had been completely pushed out after World War II and Korea and Vietnam, and were feeling unloved. They then began to move behind cover and moving towards the day that everybody who was in charge would be deemed to have failed at the task, and the military would take over. So how long between the early 70s and the Big 8-0's final date, which would be approximately 2062, any time in between can be the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. Now, the guesstimate is 2020.
Yeah.
If it's give or take 4 years, well, probably 2022 or so.
That window, right?
And I believe there will be no border between Canada and the U.S. because much to many Americans' dismay, Canada rules much of their decision-making process because they are the intermediary between all of the controllers, Germany, France, England, all have stakes in Canada. And to me, there is not much of what we now call Eastern United States after the Loup at the Sioux, which the city I was trying to think about is Sault Ste. Marie, where the water will start flowing. And then, of course, you're flooding Canada's west end of Ontario first, which includes the OPP at Orillia and their address 777. And then when it hits the St. Lawrence entry point from Lake Ontario, there's just simply too much water to fit in that space, which, as you know, is only 35 feet deep and a mile across. So how do you fit Lake Superior, that is 500 and some miles across, 300 and some miles long, and 1,200 feet deep? Even if only the top 40 feet runs off, you have a problem. And that problem of 4 stories of a house are underwater at 40 feet. Now, what good would it do for everybody in a skyscraper to run upstairs?
Just to die in the end, yeah.
There ain't no way of flying out thousands of people by helicopter. You might get 1,000 at most, I would imagine. But in Manhattan, you have how many millions of people?
Mm-hmm.
8 million?
Yep.
Yeah.
On that island.
And don't forget, the UN is not a place that was put together in a town called Flushing by accident.
Why would they put the UN in Flushing? At least.
That's where they
Right.
started it.
Yeah. Okay.
Where the World's Fair was.
That's 1947 to 1949, eh? And that's the same time that the OPP was moved out of Toronto to Orillia. And don't forget, UN in French is un, which means O-N-E in English. One.
Right before 1 comes what? 0. What's 0? Yeah, the nuns.
Zero is the original. And the original lived before the Ice Age. And they went in hiding in 24,000 BC. And by 4,000 BC, nobody could find them. And therefore, they declared it the beginning of the world and put it in the Bible as 4,000 BC. But these people are in hiding. And if you take your telephone and you type in Moho, M-O-H-O, what will pop up is Moho discontinuity. And if you look at the picture that they put, and you get a, an enlargement view of that picture, you will see a red line on the base of the picture inside the earth, below the plates, 8 miles below the sea, 30 to 60 miles, depending on what's on top of the land. Mountains can enlarge the space or bring it up because it will go push it deeper. And I've been trying to get some clear view of how thick that red line would be, which would describe the thickness of the space in which they are hiding in a group of tunnels that link all of the original continents of the earth before the current ones took shape. And what they do, those continents, is provide resistance to the pressures and heat that occurs everywhere else on the planet. If you try to dig a hole, you come up to a place where it's just too hot and too much pressure. But if you dig your hole in the original continents, which the modern world calls shields, like we are on the Canadian Shield here, you can get to the depths of the Moho discontinuity, and it is just above the mantle. And the mantle, of course, contains the letters to the word ant. And where do the ants go and hide but above the mantle in the Moho discontinuity? And from there, manufacture half-human, half-robot individuals that they plant in the world we know as bureaucrats, the rats made from ants. And of course, number 2 is number 1. So if you look at the Royal Bank of Canada and their symbol being a cat, it says RBC and then a big cat, like a panther on the outside. So R cannot be number 1, it has to be number 2. What's missing out in front is in hiding, and that's the ants. So it should be A, RBC, ants, rats, bats, and cats?
You know, when I look at like architecture and people's houses, it's common to see at the beginning of people's homes, always in the opening, like the door or the gate, you'll see a cat, a lion, or sometimes a lion will have like a ball. You know, like I guess it's referencing Baal, that religion.
No,
But they always put it
why cat's important, big cat.
Mm-hmm.
That's because when the first humans were magically born because of all of the elements coming together of genetics, electricity, and water, it creates life. And part of that life, maybe only a few, but maybe 100 or 500 or 1,000 over billions of years, were born and died because there was nobody there to feed it. However, there's one thing that you spot if you have, like me, 50 cats running around the backyard, is when a kitten or a group of kittens are abandoned by the mother for whatever reason, she got killed along the road or what have you, other cats come by, look at them, and some will eat them. But others, especially if they had a batch of kittens and lost them for some reason or other, will pick up the kittens, bring them home, and nourish them. So you can imagine a panther coming down the mountains, and I use the name panther because it has ants in it, coming down the mountain and seeing a human being by Lake Van, say in Turkey, and saying, I lost my babies, I'm going to take this one home. And picking up the child, takes it into its cave and feeds it long enough for the child to survive until it can make do with water on its own. And in looking for a second level of feeding, finds an animal that suits their purpose, a mountain goat. And if you think of the name goat, well, it has the word oat in it, O-A-T, and oats are usually the outside cover of food. They have nourishment of their own, but they usually provide an interim until you find the food itself. So all of that would tell you that the cat has always had a special place in the heart of human beings, to the point when once they decided to manufacture caves as homes, they call them houses, they always made room in the house for the cat. And the cat lived as a god within the houses. That kind of died out over time as people became greedier and greedier. And cats then were chased outside, take care of yourself. But there were enough of them to feed each other and survive, even though they had to deal with a lot of predators. They had passed the hump of the beginning when they were few and far between. Now, you have to look at what's the future. And the future rests in words in English that I have to use, because if I use the words that are being used by the people who are there, we wouldn't know what we're talking about. But the words are hell, purgatory, and heaven. If you die, your DNA, the material stuff, goes off in one direction. The electricity that runs that machine called a human or any other life, because it takes electricity to make it function, it goes in another direction. And that is called, in modern language, a ghost. Ghosts survive while DNA lingers until found and placed in a appropriate recipe to shock it with the electricity and bring it back to life. That's more known as genetic engineering.
Now, wouldn't there be confusion with what the system they call the holy G-host? That's a control mechanism.
Yeah. One comes from the word which is religious, and the other comes from a hole in the ground. The hole in the ground is the cave. The hole in the ground is a moho discontinuity. Entered into by descending a volcano, empty volcano, burnt out volcano in Antarctica, which does not mean its limits are Antarctica, because it's not limited by anything in the moho discontinuity, except finding another escape hatch, which is an extinct volcano. So when you have an extinct volcano, you normally have what it did to the surface of the earth at one time or other, and that's make a hill or a bump in the ground. And by some strange coincidence, the people with money who build governments always seem to be choosing the highest ground and call it Parliament Hill, Capitol Hill. Where I was born, according to the records, I don't know if it's true or not, there's always a possibility of having been adopted. My place I was raised in was called Sandy Hill. Everybody that lives on the hill goes down one way and back up another way because they are higher by nature, is what people believe, but it's not as much nature as it is a push from underground from a volcano. Now, knowing what I know today, it is my opinion that volcanoes can be played on a keyboard, like an organ. You can make one go off one place, stop another one from making noise another place. But as they require access, they blow the top off Mount St. Helens, for example. The names of volcanoes are not accidental. They are part of a coding structure. The name Helen, of course, goes back to Greece. The most beautiful woman in the world.
Yeah, that's the one they went to war over, right?
Yeah.
Helen.
There was a time when Jennifer, who had been apparently adopted from nuns and taken to California, where she was registered as having been born there, but in fact having been born in Ontario, Canada, and taken for sale by the nuns to Ogdensburg, New York. In February 1955, and if you look at information in New York Times, February 1955, one of the articles you'll find, if you have the patience, is the sale of babies in Ogdensburg by the nuns. I think there were about 250 at the time. And Jennifer, and I believe it, but I didn't know her then, I'm told grew up to be one of the, if not the most beautiful woman in California when she was in her 20s. So what the cell told me, and what I now believe, is that when people die, they go to trial. That trial is different from what we call a trial, because the only person who testifies is the person on trial. And since that person is not speaking, what speaks on its behalf is its own brain that speaks through a system of deprogramming and creates an image for every moment of that person's life, and can be accessed by the cord, the pineal cord from the pineal gland in the brain, and that will then give creation the information regarding where the person goes next. Going to hell, contrary to religious belief, is to go where you burn the most and for the longest time. And that is not fire, it is ice.
Interesting.
And where you go to wait out your cleansing, if that's what we could call it, is purgatory. And where you go out after cleansing, or could go directly if you've been cleansed prior to your death, is paradise. Now, paradise in California needed a cleansing because some people, if not the majority, who had got into paradise, got in illegally and had no business being there. According to the cell, the population of the earth now being approximately 7.5 billion people matches the number of people waiting for entry from purgatory into paradise, the real paradise. And that would mean over 7 billion people are waiting for something to occur that will provide their cleansing. What you have now is a small number, comparatively speaking, of about 500 million people or less in paradise, with 7 or more billion people knocking at the door. No one can go from one place to the other unless it's at the beginning when they were tried and found not guilty and deemed appropriate to go to paradise, or were pardoned, rightly so or wrongly so, by whoever was assigned that task, as Jennifer is now assigned, and a cleansing has occurred, and those who didn't belong there have been taken out and put at the bottom of the line in purgatory. Now, from what I'm told, purgatory and paradise, daily life is almost the same, with one major exception. In purgatory, you never meet anyone you know. And you never know anyone for more than a day. Because every day brings new people you have never met before. And the people you've met, you never see again. That changes totally when you go to paradise. Paradise, you have the choice on who you want to be with.
How did these people, heard you mention before, if I heard you correctly, people went into paradise that had no business being there? How did that happen?
By the person who pardoned them in error, or out of personal wants, like somebody, a mother wanting her child
Mm-hmm.
who has a totally different view of life than she did. Without being cleansed, they pollute.
Logical. That makes. So you can't skip that process, eh?
No, the process functions. Now what the cell says is required is cats in heaven or in paradise. And what they have set up as a plan is by using the 34.2 acres that we have here, they must build a center of knowledge that will help determine the people who belong in paradise. And the basic thing they say has to happen is people have to understand the role of cats and how human beings would not be here had it not been for cats. And therefore, their plan is to approach millionaires, 100 of them to be chosen, and those chosen, first of all, have to have more money than they would ever spend in a lifetime doing whatever it is normal people would do. And normal people wouldn't say, here, take all my money, but just normal living. And the amount of money that requires, I'm told by the royal family in England, $30 million. Used to be $27 million when I first got the information. It's now $30 million. So if you have $10 million in excess of $30 million, and the example they give is Tiger Woods, has $740 million. Okay? Mm-hmm. So whether Tiger Woods had to continue his life on $730 million rather than $740 million, it wouldn't matter one iota. And therefore, he would be a prospect for them to ask $10 million. It is in their view that most people would turn him down. However, all they are looking for is 100, and there are thousands of millionaires. Billionaires are not allowed.
Why is that?
Because by being a billionaire, you are proving that you don't have the right attitude. A billionaire didn't get his money from his mother. A billionaire got his money from investments in the stock market or inheritance of existing large companies, all of which exist by theft. because the stock market is a theft of poor people into the hands of billionaires, passing through a few rich people along the way, but on its way up the line.
That's your Donald Trump's and his gang.
Donald Trump is the least of their worries. There are a lot more people who try to control the world than Donald Trump is. However, he's basically at the bottom of that list. So what they want is 100 millionaires who will provide each a maximum of $10 million. And that $10 million added to the other 99 makes $1 billion for the development of the project that they want. Now, in return for that, they will be told that their $10 million will buy the equivalent of half a person. Let's see, gotta get this right. Two people. My head is frozen, so I'm having a hard time calculating here. $2 buys a single person. So $500 million, half of $10 million is $5 million. 5 million souls who have no other way of getting into paradise and are languishing, albeit royally, in purgatory, would be allowed to move on each donation. On the other hand, people who don't have millions of dollars can buy the same thing for themselves or people they know by donating $2. So a billionaire can move directly, not a billionaire, a millionaire can move directly from earth into paradise if he has donated $10 million to this project and receives and carries with him a cat. 100 people, 100 cats. So my job is to say to people, in order to begin the project, what they want is an ancient garden. And that requires some equipment. The next thing they want is a power plant for that garden and a cat clinic to be built next to it. So what they're looking for is solar panels and concrete block place where batteries can collect solar energy, and that solar energy could then be used to power a pump on a well that would feed the garden and the cats. And once that is working, another building next to it, which they call Cielico Cat Clinic, is a full-time clinic to make sure the cats are as well kept and away from any disease or whatever as can be made, so that from the batch of cats retained at the last day, 100 of them can be passed on to 100 human beings who donated the $10 million. I hope that's not too confusing.
I just gotta I have to give it time to mulch.
Yeah. So that's where I am, and I've got 4 places for donations. Each $2 allows a person who is currently in waiting in line to enter paradise, dead, of course, ghostly in structure, Holy Ghost, HOLEY instead of HOLY. And that person, once $2 is donated, can go to paradise if that person has been named, and if no name is given, it is at random. And for donations to be made, I've put out a tub where people can throw in their toonies, a different tub if they don't have a toonie but have change, like 2 loonies and quarters and dimes and nickels, and another place for pennies, with the hope that somebody will donate a penny one day that will have more value than the face value of it. However, if they donate 200 pennies or 4 rolls of 50 cents, it's the same thing as donating a toonie. 4th place is making a bank statement payment by either check or bank draft or any deposit directly at a bank into a bank account set up especially for that purpose. Which, by the way, that bank now has about $300 in it. The toonies and change should have approximately the same amount if one took it out and counted it. Right now, it's under a pile of snow. And I have a box full of pennies. Now, one thing that could happen is I've been told about the project having a timeline called the Big 8-0. The Big 8-0 is a graph that appears in the Anglican Bible. The one that I was told to look at is a Bible that was created in 1881. We live on County Road 18, and the American side is 81. The code is the Christian version of evolution, which starts with Adam and supposedly goes down to today, on its way passing by what we know or are taught as Jesus. However, on that sketch or graph, the name at the end that would apply to Jesus is scrambled. So you can't really say that it's Jesus. Certainly, by counting what appears to be the letters, the name is not Jesus because it has too many letters. The name, I have figured out, appears more to be Giacomo. In any event, with that page in mind, and you flip the page over, the backside is a series of coins made at the beginning of the making of coins. It appears, although I don't remember ever having counted how many pictures, but approximately 30. Those coins are supposed to be here on this property. As a set, I'm told they are worth $1 billion. Individually, practically nothing in comparison. And therefore, I've been given 12 locations on the farm where, as we move forward with the development, a search using a metal detector should be undertaken. Those are 12 places on 34.2 acres as prospective areas. If one were to find those coins along the way, that in itself would cover the cost of the project. So, all worth doing until the cell comes back and says that they have completed their search and now have $1 billion from 100 people donating $10 million. If I got my numbers right. Does that complicate your story even more?
Yeah. I have to, like I've always done, I have to analyze it, observe, analyze, conclude.
Yeah, and it takes time.
Yeah. But
however, it doesn't prevent me from beginning the process. That's what I've done. And the more the merrier. There is no excuse for anyone that could come to this farm to say they can't afford $2. There is no excuse for the millionaires they're looking for that could say, I can't afford $10 million when I have $740 million. No. So excuses are not in order, only belief. And the belief is a personal thing that cannot be implanted in anybody but themselves. However, as I told the taxi drivers in the area, what have you got to lose? If all you need to do is put in $2 and wait. Is that not worthy of an attempt when you have to pay $3 for a lottery ticket? Here we're talking about eternity. Eternity is a long, 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 long time. Who hasn't got the ability to do that? And if they did, what would that do to this area's businesses? If a $1 billion project is built within the region surrounded by New York, Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba, with most of the people living there having the ability to come and put in $2, that, to me, would suggest that every business in the area would thrive in a manner not much different than Fatima or Lourdes, who receive something like 4 million visitors a year. And therefore spend money in food and lodging and souvenirs and what have you. And here you have the first place that I know of where a quote-unquote apparition of the cell appeared rather than a Virgin Mary, and appeared to an old man instead of to children. What is there to lose? Nothing. What is there to gain? Whatever it is that happens when it happens. And if it doesn't happen, what is there to lose while you're alive? What there is to lose is how you will die. Will you die a normal death, or will you die an induced death? Disease and heart attacks and lung cancer and strokes are all man-made.
And people know this. They know this deep down.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's up to them to choose how they would rather die. Do they want to forget the real bad people who go to hell or the equivalent? Would they want to spend eternity at the bottom of a 7 billion person lineup?
You know, that almost sounds like being in a bureaucracy where you're just waiting online to get whatever procedure you want to get done.
Yeah. You know, it may not be freezing and it may not be hot as hell and it may not be starving and it has all the needs one has to survive. But for what reason you want to survive? You're not going anywhere. You're not going to meet somebody today that you'll like enough to want to meet tomorrow.
Like jail, man. That's what jail is like, actually. I think it's just you're in a place with a bunch of people and you're not going anywhere, and you just have a time on your hands.
And that's where we are.
Yeah.
And the choice is everybody's. Now, you guys don't have to worry because you've already put in more than $2.
Yeah.
You guys have a passport. Now, how many of your friends would you like to bring along?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to bring some people along.
Yep.
And all of that is either they donate or you donate on their behalf. Each person, $2.
Maybe you could send Jennifer a post or something that kind of give like a notice, or people could see it as well as listen to it, I guess.
Well, I'm hoping that you're going to take this tape and play it where people can hear it.
Oh, yeah.
And tell them that it's no use calling me. First of all, if I had to answer and speak like this to everybody that called, I would never get anything done.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like that to happen. Secondly, I have no idea in the world who's on the other end of the line, and it's got to be cleared by the cell before I get it, unless I know the number like yours and Danny's. I don't even know the whole numbers. I just know that yours says Jordan and his ends in 76.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to answer the phone for all these people. If they take the time to come here, I'll take the time to talk to them. If they want more than half an hour of my time, they're going to have to pay more than $2 because I'm not doing something while I'm talking to them. And at least if I can get paid for it, I put it in the pot, and that completes the value of my time.
Well, what you're saying is invaluable, though.
I beg your
Never
pardon?
enough. So what you're saying is invaluable.
Yeah. I have been paid when I was giving background information to the history of the world, not from the 4,000 years BC, but from 200,000 BC, and showed how it fit into today's world, and that took me 4 days to do. And the people would donate $2,000 or $500 a day. So that made it worthwhile, or I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have been able to pay the taxes or the mortgage or anything. I would only be paid what I could get off my poverty retirement allowance. And that basically is food for cats and me.
And from what I understand, they cut that, right? They cut it in half or something.
They tried. They tried, but Jennifer contacted somebody in the Prime Minister's office. They passed the letter on to somebody in the taxation department, and they backed down and put back the money. At first, they had said they were cutting 3/4, and then they brought it down to 1/4 and took it, and then they put it back. After Jennifer got a letter and a phone call from somebody in the government, and you don't know who they are, you don't know if it's even true, although they wrote on government letterhead in the email to her. They called from one of those phone numbers that anybody can rent, so that they couldn't be tracked by using a government phone number. But the cell tracks them anyways. But the cell won't tell me things that I might say that they don't want said at this stage of the game. But right now, I know that they don't want certain things to happen to cats. And circumcision, or whatever it's called in English, the tying the tubes.
Oh, I think spade? No, is it spade?
Spade, yeah.
Neuter, spade.
They don't want spayed cats.
Hmm.
And people who want spayed cats, it's because they don't like cats.
Hmm.
And if they don't like cats, don't come here.
Hmm.
Because creation knows when you throw in your toonie, if you hate cats, it ain't going to buy you anywhere else but the bottom of the line in purgatory.
I see that.
You don't have to love cats enough to live with them, but you can't pursue them in order to destroy them.
I've met like certain people a while ago. I met this lady who, she kind of made her home like I guess a clinic for cats,
That's helpful.
Yeah. I think some people like her would be like useful.
Yeah.
But when I spoke to this lady, it's like it was such a rare occasion to meet a person like that. Like she seemed like a good person, and I don't meet people like that regularly. You know, it's not very often.
No, I had a woman show up at the door here, and we were talking about cats, and she was saying how she loved them, and I told her that in the house I have 15 or more cats, and she said, "Oh, I know some people who would pay to have them spayed and keep them around as pets, and they would treat them really well." I said, "Well, not my cats, you're not." If cats need to be spayed, who's next? Human beings?
Mm-hmm. And that's what they're saying. That's what they're starting to repeat the garbage that they get from the system. I've heard people say, "Oh, there's too many people. We have to do something about. There's too many people here. We should just come up with some type of solution so people don't breed anymore."
Find all the people who love cats being spayed and spay them. Say what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I think I've heard that a long time ago.
I can't remember it. Can't remember the first time I heard it. In any event, that's where we're at. And that requires me going to take care of food for some animals because it's almost 4 o'clock. Eh?
Yeah, it's get dark in an hour. By 5 it'll be completely
dark.
All right.
So, thank you for everything you've done, and you too, Danny. And here we go. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you. And
you. Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye, Glenn.
Bye.